Hello, I'm Roger Bisbee from the Skill Builder channel, back with another product roundup, and we got some great products. Well, I think they're great. You tell me what you think. And this is a measuring device from Reekon, and James King,
hello mate,
used to be on our channel. He crowdfunded this. He liked the idea of it, so he put a bit of money in there. What it does is you clip it on the back fence of your chop saw or something like that, your motor saw, whatever, and what it does, the wheel turns round and it measures the distance. So you put it onto your chop saw, you put the piece of timber up to the blade and you zero it. At that point, that's 0.0. And then you push the material through the saw and you come to your required measurement, and then you stop there and you chop. I actually couldn't work this out because it came without instructions, and I had to kind of look at it and try and figure it out. I went up to Babika's workshop and I talked to Richard, very bright guy, and between the two of us we managed to work it out. First thing you do is calibrate it, then obviously you've got to clip it on the fence, and then here's the trick. So we kept putting the material through and we kept looking at the result. We thought, this is wrong, this isn't quite right. And the reason it wasn't quite right is because we hadn't factored in the thickness of the blade. You have to measure the thickness of the blade physically with a ruler, and in our case it was 3 millimeters thick, the blade, and you have to add that on. You have to program that in there. You're pushing the material up to the blade on one side, you zero it, and then you push the material through, but obviously when you cut it, the cut is on the other side of the blade, and that's where the discrepancy comes. So you have to add that thickness of the blades. Once you've programmed it in, told it what the thickness of the blade is, it does the job for you. The important thing is it accurate. Well, we found it very accurate. Would you buy it? I personally wouldn't, because I don't do enough repetitive work, and if I was cutting a load of pieces of the same size, I would just set a fence up on the end, an end stop if you like, somewhere on the stand, and I will just push the material up to the end stop, cut it. Really where it comes into its own is when you're cutting material of lots of different sizes. You don't want to keep going up there, putting the tape on, bringing it down, marking it and so on. It is accurate, it does work, and once you clamp it onto the fence, provided you don't move that fence, you don't move that backstop, then it's going to work. But I think every so often you need to check it. In other words, cut the piece of material, get your tape measure out and check that you're still calibrated, because you know wood's expensive these days and you don't want to be cocking it up, you know, cutting 10 pieces and find that the thing's out and you've wasted 10 pieces of wood. So the next product that I want to show you is this beautiful little thermal imaging camera from Topdon. Now I've got a couple of these. I've got a FLIR, which is a very expensive unit, over £1,000. This is a lot cheaper than that, obviously. This is something that you can plug in to your phone. In my case, I've got an Android phone and I've downloaded the app for it already, just to save a bit of time. So all we need to do is switch the phone on. So we're ready with the app. The app's downloaded. We plug it in the bottom. This is a Type-C plug in there. And then we've got the thermal image on the top. We can do temperature monitoring, where we just leave it on and it monitors the temperature. Or in this case, what we're doing is a bit of thermal imaging, so we just press the thermal imaging. Now you can see our cameraman there glowing with warmth. Do a bit of exercise. It's a freezing cold day today. Very good, very good. I'll have to pay him extra. He's got plenty of layers on there. I'm quite impressed by it. It's a lot easier to use than things like the FLIR and the Bosch that I've got, which have got way too many dials on them. So if all you want is to go round and look at thermal bridging and find the cold spots in the building and just see where the hot spots are, or if you're trying to find pipes under a floor, supposing you're trying to find even something like an underfloor heating pipe, you can do that with this device. I reckon you could even find a cold pipe with it, because you're going to have a difference in temperature. If that cold pipe is running, you'll be able to find out where that's buried. So it's going to save you a lot of messing around and searching for things. You'll be able to find cables with it as well. Basically anything that's hidden in the wall that may have a different temperature. I was quite surprised to find a little bit of thermal bridging in my house in various places. This actually picked it up more effectively than the FLIR, because as I say, it's a very simple device. It's only giving you those two things. It's giving you the temperature, the difference between one temperature and another, and from that you can work out where the cold bridges are. Great little device. I found it very reliable, rechargeable battery inside it. You can use it on other devices. You can actually use this on a tablet, or you can even use it on your PC, just plug it in. But obviously for most people, putting it into a phone is going to be preferable. So there you are, I'll give that a thumbs up, put it back in its nice neat case. And the great thing is that the charger is also in there, because I always seem to separate the chargers from the device, and I'm running around trying to find which charger does what. There you are, Topdon, top dollar thermal imaging camera. Next up on the bench is an air monitoring sensor from Elprico. Now, I came across this when I was watching Rag and Bone Brown's channel, and he was talking about wood burning stoves and the particle contamination that you get from them. And there's been a lot of scare stories about wood burning stoves, and I'm very keen to learn more, because I've been using a wood burning stove for about 40 years, which means I should be dead by now. Look at this thing. This is crazy, isn't it? It looks like a bit of home electronics. It looks like the sort of thing an enthusiast would do. Nobody's bothered making a case for it. They've just stuck the circuit board and the fan onto a bit of Perspex. You can put this into any USB port, obviously get your power. The scale that we're interested in really is the 2.5, because that's where the damage occurs. If you're breathing in stuff which is 2.5 microns, that can be a real problem for you. So you can put this in your workshop, or in my case, I'm going to put it by the wood burning stove for a few days. It's really when I open the door to reload the stove, because if that chimney isn't drawing, if it's not hot, if it hasn't been drawing well, and you open the door, you can get a little bit of smoke out. It's actually bad for you. Don't worry about the reading you get when you first switch it on, because it's going to stabilize. It's got a little fan going through there, it's drawing air through, and it's measuring the microns. Now on the bottom here is a little scale. 0 to 50 is good, 50 to 100 is moderate, 100 to 150 is lightly polluted, 150 to 200 is moderately polluted, and 200 to 300 heavily polluted. Anything over 300, get the hell out of it. This is about 50 quid's worth. To my mind, it's well worth it, because you can take it out on site and you can see just how good it is. So all the links for these products are in the details below, so please don't be putting on your comments, where can I buy that, where can I buy this? We've already told you where you can buy it. We're doing the work so you don't have to. So the next product I want to show you is the Grindermate from Metex. This is a new product for them, and they sent it to us. They wanted a bit of feedback first and foremost. So what is it? It's actually something for holding bricks, for cutting. You could make one of these. It's like the old mitre blocks. We used to make up our own mitre blocks years ago when we were cutting skirtings, and then chop saws came along. No need to do it anymore. This is a similar idea. You just put your brick on here. You've got 45-degree cut. So if you're doing block paving, which I would reckon is probably the main reason why anybody would want this if they're into block paving, just to hold the brick steady. It's a health and safety thing basically, because you shouldn't really be using your shoe to hold the block in place. You should be using something else. So with this, you can actually put it against the stop here, and the idea is that obviously when the grinder's going, it's pulling back against the stop, so it's not going to slide out. Again, as I say, you've got a 45-degree mark there. Most of the time you mark the block up, but if you don't, then you kind of know what you're doing there. You've got your 90 degrees there, you've got a couple more there, so you can put in a quarter. If you're trying to do a quarter, then you can put in a quarter. You know, it's okay, isn't it? It's a heavy grade plastic device. How long it's going to last, how long before you put that grinder through the plastic, I don't know. Depends how careful you are. And I reckon you could possibly do something with a bit of a backstop on it. So the other thing that's pretty good that you wouldn't get if you did it out of plywood is that you've got this little channel here, which is obviously going to take the dust away, and that means that when you put the brick back against it, you haven't got a layer of dust building up there. You could just simply bang it out and away it goes. So I'm going to give that a go, see what I think. Really, you know, it's around about the 30 quid mark. Is that the kind of money that you would pay for something like this? Certainly if you're the boss and you're worried about your staff's health and safety, I think that you have to provide them with the kit, even if they end up not using it, as is often the way with PPE and other safety devices. So there you are, Metex, the Grindermate. I don't know what that means, Grindermate. I asked my kids, what's this grinder? And they said, Dad, you don't need to know. The next product I'd like to show you is the P40 Endoscope, which is a little inspection camera. Now, I've lost count of how many of these I've had over the years. I tried to use it on some drains, and it wasn't really great at that. The pictures just aren't good enough quality for me to see what was going on, and the light wasn't really powerful enough. It's at a price that for those small inspection jobs, getting inside some kind of void in your house, you know, some small area, maybe the back of a computer or something like that. I think it would probably work quite well. What I did find is when I turned it on, wouldn't show a signal. It was a bit baffling, and I read the instructions, and the instructions weren't fantastic, you know, usual sort of Chinese ones, you know, bit difficult to follow. But what I did discover subsequently when I sat down is that if you just leave that button on, it'll turn off. So when you turn it back on again, just hold the button down, and then you see the light comes on, and then suddenly we've got a picture. But if you don't do that, if you just switch it on and hope for the best, which is what it tells you in the instructions, you won't see very much at all. You know, the picture's not amazing, but it's not too bad, and you can put a single screen on there. This is always the difficulty with these things, is trying to find the orientation. So that's upside down. So if I turn the screen around, that's the easiest way of doing it. And I put this in the category of cheap and cheerful. I'd be interested to know if you found better ones than this, if paying a little bit more money gives you a bit more quality. It may well be that an 18 quid one is as good as a 60 quid one. If you know the answer to that, then put your comments below. We're interested, as always, in recommendations from our viewers. So I'm Roger Bisbee. I hope you found that interesting and useful, and come back and see us soon. We've got more products coming up in the future. And if you're a manufacturer and you want to send some products in for review for us to have a look at, then we don't promise to be nice about them, but we do promise to be fair.